The air in Umeoji was always crisp, carrying the scent of wildflowers and pine trees from the rolling hills that surrounded the village. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and the cozy streets were lined with small shops that held a sense of history and charm. At the heart of it all was Clara's salon, a tiny, cheerful haven tucked between the bakery and the post office. It wasn't just the walls of the salon that exuded warmth. It was Clara herself. Clara is a very beautiful girl that lived in a village of Umeoji. She's an orphan and came from a very poor background. She's hard-working and humble. Clara was the kind of person who could brighten anyone's day. Her energy was contagious, her laughter genuine, and her hands were magic when it came to cutting and styling hair. But there was one thing about her that remained a mystery to all but a few: her special hair cream. Each morning, Clara arrived early to set up her station, her movements fluid and practiced. Beside her scissors, beside her combs, sat a small jar of creamy white lotion, almost unnoticeable in its simplicity. But anyone who had been in her chair for a cut or a style would tell you, the moment the cream touched their hair, magic happened. Clients left her salon glowing, their hair softer, shinier, and more vibrant than it had ever been before. And yet, no one could place the cream. No one knew where it came from. All anyone knew was that Clara's secret cream worked wonders, and it was always a mystery. Sophie had only been in Umeoji for a few weeks, but already she loved the small village. It was a world away from the city's noise and crowded streets. The shops were quaint, the people friendly, and everything seemed slower, more peaceful. On this particular Saturday, after a long week of settling in, Sophie decided it was time for a haircut. She had heard about Clara's salon, tucked between the bakery and the little bookstore. It was known as the best place in Umeoji for a fresh cut, and people said Clara was a genius with hair. Sophie wasn't sure what to expect, but she figured a good haircut was exactly what she needed to feel more at home. When Sophie walked in, she was immediately struck by the warm, inviting atmosphere. The soft hum of a blow-dryer, the fresh smell of shampoo, and the gentle chatter of the other customers created a relaxing vibe. Clara, the salon owner, was standing at the counter, her hands moving expertly as she arranged scissors, combs, and a small jar of cream on the countertop. "Hi there." Clara greeted her with a bright smile. "What can I do for you today?" Sophie smiled back, feeling immediately at ease. "I just need a trim, nothing too fancy." Clara nodded, leading her to one of the plush chairs near the window. The light streaming through the glass made everything feel cozy and warm. As Clara worked, Sophie relaxed into the chair, enjoying the feeling of being pampered. Her hair was long and wavy, but a little unruly at the ends. Clara's hands moved skillfully, and soon, Sophie could see her hair taking shape. Then, Clara picked up the small jar of cream and applied it to the ends of Sophie's hair. The moment it touched her hair, Sophie was surprised by how soft it felt. Her hair, which had always been a little frizzy and dry, was suddenly smooth and shiny. "What's that?" Sophie asked, her curiosity getting the best of her. "That cream, it smells so nice, and it's making my hair feel amazing." Clara paused for a moment, glancing at the jar in her hand. "Oh, it's just something I use," she said with a smile. "Nothing fancy. Just a little something I've been using for years." Sophie wasn't sure what Clara meant, but she wasn't about to push her. Clara's friendly smile made it clear that it wasn't something she normally talked about. The smell of jasmine from the cream lingered in the air, making the whole experience feel like a special treat. When the haircut was finished, Sophie's hair looked incredible, softer than she could ever remember. "Wow, thank you," Sophie said, running her fingers through her hair. "It's perfect." Clara's smile grew wider. "You're welcome. I'm glad you like it." As Sophie left the salon, she couldn't stop thinking about that cream. It wasn't just the smell or the way it made her hair feel, it was something about it that felt special. Sophie made a mental note to herself, "I need to know what's in that cream." The next week, Sophie returned to Umoji, eager to see Clara again. She'd been telling herself that it was just a haircut and that the cream was no big deal, but she couldn't shake the thought of it. She hadn't been able to stop thinking about how great her hair had felt afterward. This time, she had a little more confidence. As Clara began trimming her hair, Sophie casually asked, "So, that cream you used last time, what exactly is it? I've never used anything like it before." Clara smiled as if she'd expected the question. "Like I said, it's just a little something I use. It helps keep hair soft and shiny." Sophie nodded, but she wasn't convinced. "Yeah, I get that. But what's actually in it? Is it something you can buy at a store?" Clara chuckled, glancing over at the jar. It was sitting on the counter, looking completely ordinary but with an air of mystery. "It's not a brand you'll find on a shelf, if that's what you're asking." Sophie's curiosity grew stronger. "So it's something homemade? Or special? You have to tell me." Clara paused for a second, as if deciding how much to say. "I don't usually talk about it," she said softly. "It's just something I've been using for a long time. It's really more of a personal thing, you know?" Sophie leaned forward in the chair, intrigued. "Personal? Like a family thing?" Clara hesitated for a moment, and Sophie could see that there was more to the story. But instead of answering right away, Clara just smiled again and said, "Maybe one day I'll tell you the whole story. But for now, let's just say it works, and I'm glad you like it." Sophie felt a little disappointed that Clara wasn't sharing more. But she could tell that the cream wasn't just some fancy product. There was something deeper to it, something meaningful to Clara. Sophie resolved to find out what it was. "Maybe I'll get her to tell me next time," she thought, as Clara finished styling her hair and handed her a mirror. When Sophie looked in the mirror, her hair was flawless, so smooth and shiny. She couldn't help but smile. "It's perfect again," she said, amazed. Clara beamed. "I'm glad you like it. See you soon." As Sophie left the salon, the mystery of the cream was still on her mind. What was the real story behind it? A few weeks later, Sophie ran into Clara at the local market. Sunny Saturday morning, and Clara was picking through the produce, selecting apples for a pie. Sophie seized the opportunity. "Clara, I have to know," Sophie said, walking up to her with a determined look in her eye. "What's in that cream? It's like nothing I've ever used before." Clara froze, her hand hovering over a basket of apples. Her smile faltered as she looked at Sophie, and for a long moment she said nothing. Then, with a deep sigh, she set the apples down and motioned for Sophie to follow her. They walked down the narrow cobblestone streets toward the old oak tree in the town square, away from prying eyes. When they reached the tree, Clara paused and looked at Sophie, her eyes softening. "All right," she said quietly. "I'll tell you, but only because you've been so persistent. You deserve to know the truth." Sophie's, "I guess you've been asking long enough. I'll tell you the story. But you have to promise me something. You'll understand that this is more than just a product for me." Sophie nodded eagerly. "I promise. I just want to know." Clara took a deep breath. "It was something my mom made. She was a chemist, and before she passed away, she created that formula. She always wanted to help women feel beautiful, powerful, like they could take on the world. She used to give it to friends, and it worked wonders on their hair. Sophie's eyes widened in surprise. That's amazing. Clara smiled softly. It is. And after she passed away, I couldn't bear the thought of selling it. It's not just a product, it's a memory of her. It's a part of her that I keep close to me. I use it here in the salon because it's a way for me to remember her every day. Sophie sat quietly, letting the story sink in. She hadn't expected this. She had thought the cream was just some fancy product. But now she understood. I get it, Sophie said quietly. It's not just about the cream. It's about your mom. Clara nodded, a small tear in her eye. Exactly. It's something special and I don't ever want to forget why I use it. It's not for sale. It's just something I share with people who come into my salon, who need it. And that's enough for me. Sophie smiled warmly, understanding the weight of Clara's words. Thank you for telling me. I won't forget it. From that moment on, Sophie understood the true meaning behind Clara's special cream. It wasn't just a beauty product, it was a piece of history, a reminder of love, and a way for Clara to keep her mother's memory alive. Over time, Clara found a new understanding of what beauty truly meant. It wasn't about selling a product or making a profit. It wasn't about what was inside a jar. It was about how she made her clients feel. It was about the love, care, and attention to detail she put into each style, each cut, and each conversation. The salon continued to thrive, not because of the cream, but because of Clara's heart. She never gave up the secret, but she also stopped hiding behind it. She shared her mother's story with her clients who were curious, letting them in on the legacy behind the magic. I've never felt this good about myself, one of her longtime clients, Margaret, said one day as she admired herself in the mirror after a haircut. It's like you've given me more than just a new look. Clara smiled, her heart full. That's the real magic, she said softly. It's not the cream. It's the love we put into ourselves and each other. Years passed, but Clara's salon remained a cornerstone of Emoji, just as it always had been. Clara herself hadn't changed much. She still had the same welcoming smile, the same comforting energy that made her clients feel at ease from the moment they walked in. But something had shifted over time. People no longer just came to her for the perfect haircut or the magic of her special hair cream. They came because of the love and care Clara poured into everything she did. As the years went by, more and more people learned about the story behind the cream. It wasn't something Clara went around telling everyone, but when she saw someone curious enough, someone who asked with sincerity, she would share her mother's story with them. The local women of Emoji often spoke about how different Clara's salon felt. There's just something about it, Margaret, one of Clara's regulars, said to her friend over coffee one morning. It's not like going to other salons. You don't just get a haircut, you get a piece of something real. Something warm. Margaret wasn't the only one who felt that way. Over the years, the people of Emoji came to understand that Clara wasn't just a stylist. She was a keeper of memories, a storyteller through her work. Every trim, every style, every strand of hair she cut was done with a sense of care and respect, not just for the hair itself but for the people who wore it. And as more people came through her door, each with their own stories and hopes, Clara became a part of their lives. Her mother's special cream, though still a secret to most, became something more than just a product. It became a symbol. It was a symbol of the love between mother and daughter, of the small, everyday miracles that make life beautiful. It was a reminder to Clara of her mother's kindness and her belief that beauty wasn't just about what you saw in the mirror, it was about how you felt on the inside. One afternoon, when the sun was setting and the sky turned a warm golden color, Clara sat on the old bench under the oak tree in the town square. She had just finished a long day at the salon, and the air was crisp with the coming of autumn. Sophie, now a regular client, had stopped by to chat, as she often did after her haircuts. You know, Sophie said as she joined Clara on the bench, sometimes I think about that day you told me about the cream. I never really understood what it meant until I started working here. Clara raised an eyebrow. Working here? What do you mean? Sophie smiled. Well, I've been doing a lot of volunteer work, helping with the youth center, and the girls there, they're so full of self-doubt, especially about how they look. I've been talking to them about beauty, and I tell them about the cream. Not the formula, just the story. About how it's not just about looking good, it's about feeling good, about being loved. You taught me that. Clara's heart warmed as she looked at Sophie, seeing how far she had come. When Sophie had first moved to Umoji, she was shy and unsure of herself, but over the years, she had blossomed into a confident young woman who cared deeply about others. That's exactly what I want people to understand, Clara said softly. Beauty isn't a product, it's an experience. It's about the love and care we give ourselves and each other. Sophie nodded. And it's about remembering what's important. Like your mom did. Clara's eyes softened at the mention of her mother. Yes. She always said that true beauty came from the inside. And I try to live that every day. The cream, it's just a way to remind myself of that. A way to remember her. But I see it now, it's more than just something special for me. It's something I can share with the world. Over time, Clara found peace in knowing that her mother's legacy lived on not just in the salon or the cream, but in the way she made people feel. Clara's salon became a place where everyone from children to the elderly, from locals to newcomers, could find comfort and confidence. It wasn't just a beauty shop, it was a place where stories were shared, where people learned to love themselves a little more, and where kindness flowed freely. And even though the cream stayed a secret, Clara no longer felt the need to hide it. It wasn't about the cream itself, but about what it represented: love, connection, and the lasting impact of family. One winter, when Clara was older and ready to retire, she passed on the salon to Sophie, who had always been her most dedicated and loyal client. Clara had taught her everything she knew, not just about hair, but about the deeper meaning of beauty and care. Sophie promised to keep the salon just as it had been, continuing the tradition of offering a space for community, a place where everyone could be reminded of their worth. On the day of the handover, Clara stood in the salon, looking around at the familiar chairs, the warm lights, and the quiet hum of the hairdryers. The smell of the special cream lingered in the air, a soft reminder of her mother and everything they had shared. Clara knew that her mother's legacy would never be forgotten. And as Sophie took over the salon, the secret of the cream continued, passed down not just as a formula but as a symbol of love, remembrance, and the magic of making people feel beautiful from the inside out. The village of Umuoji would never forget the lessons Clara had taught them, that true beauty wasn't something you bought. It was something you carried in your heart, shared with the people around you, and passed on to the next generation. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe, like, share, and also comment your thought and lessons that you learned. Bye.